All right, family, I'm back. Sorry for the delay there. Anyway, family, welcome to Night School. If this is your first time here, we cover everything going on in the world. Night School is about the depth. Night School is not a podcast, it's not a TV show, it's a global classroom. We talk about issues that are going on in the world. I'm going to give you the updates, but I'm going to give you the updates with a deeper level of analysis. And like any classroom, it's interactive. So we have questions and answers, we have office hours, we have a whole section devoted to you breaking that you want broken down as well. So you can break stuff down to me. Sometimes I bring extra guests on to help me understand what's going on. We're going to have all of it. But I need to start with some shouts. I just want to shout out some people here who make the channel tick, including Emma Warner, who is a new subscriber to the channel. She just joined the channel. Oh, wait, I got a shout out. I'm sorry, y'all. I got to shout out Meg L. She just gifted 5 channel memberships. This is the last day of the month. So it's really important that you all who are supporting us drop stuff in at the end of the month. And believe me, it makes the first of the month a lot easier. We got the Wanderer who also joined the channel as a member. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everyone, make sure you send those welcomes out. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Amakisi is here in the building. Thank you so much. Odette Marie, thank you so much for being here with us. Jazz LP is always present and accounted for. She comes in, she hits the like button. Yo, my brother Jeremiah Muhammad, he said, got to say some time to talk about KDot. Oh, we will be talking about KDot. You think I'm not going to talk about somebody who dragged Drake? Oh, that is my life. Kira Clark is in the building as well. Odette Marie is here. Kimi Oboyade Acosta is here. Marina Frazier, Tanya, the creator, Odette Marie. I love all y'all for being here. Rachel from all the way from Massachusetts. Chad Zichterman, good to see you. Tanya said my soul needed that diss track. Yo, mine too. Asia or Aja Washington. So good to hear from you. I think it's Aja Osman Arshad. Oh, what's up, man? 76ers game seems stressful. You damn right. The 76ers game was stressful. I almost had a heart attack watching that game. Thank Lord we won, because I would not be on here talking to y'all Knicks fans right now. But we're gonna talk about Kendrick Lamar and Drake. We're gonna talk about Drew Barrymore and what she said to Vice President Kamala Harris. We're gonna talk about these new weed laws and what they might mean for us. We're gonna talk about a whole lot of stuff. Boaz Kim Music, shout out to you. Olivia Garnett, shout out to you. I'm so grateful, Sustenance Bloom, to talk to you, man. My husband ate salt and vinegar chips. Yo, I think I might start a movement of salt and vinegar chips, man, because y'all really rocking with it. Oh my God, yo. Somebody say, can we please talk about Manuel Acho's foolery tonight? You know what? I might make that my question of the night, yo. Hold on. In fact, Odette Marie, hold on to that question. Since you dropped in a super chat with a question, I'm going to make sure that we answer that question tonight, because Emmanuel Acho is acting the damn fool right now. That's a whole segment in and of itself, but I'm going to make sure we do that. I can't shout everybody out because we got to get rolling. But I want to start. I need to start with Columbia University, because Columbia University's building has been occupied all day by protesters. There was an idea that there would be some kind of agreement. Since October 17th. They've been in these encampments protesting the war in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza. But the school said enough. The president of Columbia University said enough. They sent a letter out to the students saying enough. You all have to leave the encampment. Well, the students not only didn't leave the encampment, early Tuesday morning, demonstrators stormed into Hamilton Hall. Hamilton Hall is a building that demonstrators took over back in 1968 during the Vietnam War. There were major anti-Vietnam War protests going on in the hall. And what they did was the students not only took over the building, but they hung a banner from the building and they renamed it Hind's Hall. Hind is a very common Palestinian name, like Hind al-Husseini. But Hind Hall is also named after Hind Rajab. Hind Rajab is a 6-year-old girl who was killed in Gaza 3 months ago. So they took Hamilton Hall and made it Hind Hall. What a beautiful act! What a beautiful gesture! The university said anybody who occupies this building is going to face expulsion. They said anybody who occupies the building is going to face expulsion. So that's during the day. I get a notice because I got people I got people all throughout Columbia University, and the police took over 114th Street. They raided the encampment that I talked about, the one that's been there for 2 weeks, the one that I spoke at. You can see the video on the channel. They raided the encampment, uh, and then they went after the protesters outside of Hamilton. They arrested them and put them all on buses on 114th Street. So they arrested all the students, put them on buses on 114th Street. They even had, according to my sources, a special crane to get into Hamilton, to get into the windows and pull protesters away. Let's not forget these are students, but it didn't seem to matter because they not only pulled the students out, they threw smoke bombs, or let me not say bombs. That's not what my sources say. My sources say that they used smoke to get the students out. They smoked the students out. Usually that's a smoke bomb, but I don't. The word bomb wasn't used, so I don't want to. I don't want to add that to it. But this is a nightmare at Columbia University right now. The faculty members are speaking up. Um, in fact, they issued a statement where they said they quote hold the university leadership responsible for disastrous lapses of judgment. I mean, they're talking about the fact that they have militarized a college campus. And no, I'm not saying, oh my God, I can't believe this happened at a fancy Ivy League school. I'm saying this shouldn't happen anywhere. It's not because it's Columbia. It's because it's students. It's because this is kids. It's because this is a place where people are supposed to be able to protest, where they're supposed to be able to have some level of resistance. But Columbia University made a very clear statement. They said that the New York Police Department has entered the campus at the university's request. And after the university found out that Hamilton Hall had been occupied, they said they had no choice. And they said that the leaders of the group were not affiliated with the university. I'm not sure that's true. What I do know is true, and this is the last thing I'll say before we move on to something else. Columbia University made a decision to partner with Eric Adams. They had a press conference where Eric Adams stood there with the police chief, stood there with Columbia University, and said that they are going to raid the school, right? Eric Adams specifically said, we cannot wait until this situation becomes even more serious. This must end now. But Eric Adams has never found a problem that he doesn't want to criminalize. So for him to stop the situation from getting worse and for it to end now, what does he want to do? He wants to send the police in. He says, over the past few weeks, we've observed that the protests have been co-opted by professional outside agitators. These individuals are not affiliated with Columbia and are creating serious public safety issues. Again, what they're trying to do, and by the way, one more thing. The police commissioner jumped in and said these once peaceful protests are being exploited. So they're now pretending that, oh, we're not beating up on innocent college students. There's some boogeyman that's sneaking onto the college campus and taking over. And it's that boogeyman who you should really be afraid of. It's the boogeyman you should really be worried about. It's not we're not beating up on college kids. We're beating up on the infiltrators. But what's interesting is when they were out there saying that these were anti-Semitic protests, when they were saying that these were pro-Hamas protests, they weren't saying, oh, there's some outside agitators that are interrupting the student resistance. No, then it was, oh, these are some anti-Semitic students. These are some pro-Hamas collegiates. They were telling a whole different story. But now that they're using the justification of outsiders to militarize and to criminalize, oh, now it's all good. Now they're saying something different. And this is the problem. This is why you can't trust what Eric Adams says. You can't trust most politicians, but Eric Adams has a unique gift for lying. So at the end of the day, we're going to have to look at this with some distance to really understand how awful a choice this has been. Columbia University decided to criminalize their students. They decided to militarize the campus. They welcomed in the police, who are never known to de-escalate. Police escalate things. And they've made students scapegoats. They've done everything in the playbook except call for justice in Palestine. They've done everything in the playbook except criticize the genocidal war in Gaza. They've done everything but challenge Netanyahu. They've done everything but divest from Israel. So at the end of the day, we know what Columbia University is. We see what they're about, but they're not alone, y'all. They're not alone. all across the country. I'm getting updates as we speak, and I didn't expect to talk about this, but I'm getting updates as we speak. All around the country, we're seeing similar actions. We're seeing similar conditions. We're seeing similar responses by universities. I'm going to give you just a couple quick examples. University of Texas, Austin, they encircled the students. They arrested the students. And they weren't just, they were arresting Arab students, Black students. Many Jewish students were arrested. One kid said, "We were encircled. It took the police several hours to pull people away one by one, but there was a strong sense of solidarity, resolve among the students and community members. I wasn't the only Jew. There were other people wearing kippahs." So the Jewish students at University of Texas and Austin were also arrested for being in favor of ending a genocidal war. This is what's happening all over the country, not just Columbia University, which is ground zero, right? But 16 pro-Palestinian protesters were arrested at the University of New Mexico. Again, they tried to occupy the student union building, and those students were arrested. I could go on down and name dozens more. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk about just how widespread these campus protests are, just how widespread the violence against students is and the criminalization of students is. But this is crazy. I'm hearing reports from Columbia University where one kid was knocked unconscious and they still dragged him out in handcuffs and arrested him. This is the face of modern policing. This is the face of the modern university. And it's something that is absolutely ridiculous. All right, but let's move on to another story, because I want to talk about Northwestern University, because Northwestern University was actually a place where we saw a more reasonable, maybe favorable, maybe outcome to what's going on. Northwestern University announced that an agreement had been reached with pro-Palestinian protesters to diffuse tension on campus. For several days, protesters have been consistently criticizing the university for failure to divest from Israel. They're basically saying y'all need to divest from Israel. Monday, the university announced that the deal's rules included protests could be allowed to continue until June 1st, but only with one tent up. I'm gonna break this down and tell you why this is crazy talk. The protest area will only be accessible to staff, instructors, and students. That means no outsiders. The university will reestablish an advisory committee on investment responsibility in the fall, where the university will be required to answer questions regarding specific holdings. So the university is kind of responding to the divestment demand. University claims it will fund 2 Palestinian faculty members for 2 years and the full cost of attendance for 5 Palestinian undergrads. Northwestern will also provide Muslim students and students from Middle Eastern and North African descent with a temporary space while renovating a house for that purpose in 2 years. That's the backdrop. First of all, salute to the students at Northwestern for pressuring the university to make some kind of concession. Shout out to the students at Northwestern for putting their bodies on the line, their safety and security on the line, their well-being on the line. I don't take that shit lightly at all. And no one else out there should, because a lot of the people who have the criticisms of y'all don't put their bodies on the line. They don't have the criticism of their own actions and their own lack of action. So let me be very clear, y'all. I salute you students for working. I salute you students for protesting. I salute you students for putting the spotlight on the misery in Gaza and for challenging university to do better, because universities don't make moves unless they're forced to make moves. So please don't take this as a diss at all. But let's be clear, this was not a good plan. And I mean this with love and respect. I'm not criticizing the students. I'm criticizing the outcome. Protests are going to be allowed until June 1st, and you can only have one tent. Look, if you all want to agree with that, fine. The problem with that is the whole point of civil disobedience is to be disobedient. The whole point of speaking up and protesting is to challenge power. It's to make the powerful uncomfortable. If the powerful give you a protest area and say, go over there and protest, that is not civil disobedience anymore. I mean, it still creates a spectacle. It still will draw some attention. But if I'm just in my corner protesting, that does nothing. When you take over the building, that's when you do something. When you're sitting in front of the president's office, locked to the door, that does something. When you're out there actually challenging and making the public aware of the issue by making the powerful uncomfortable, that's when you're getting somewhere. You want the power. If you stay in a protest square and you just march around with your little signs for 6 months or a year, university at some point is going to be like, all right, they're over there and they protest. They'll even see it as a badge of honor that we allow free speech, because they're allowing the free speech with nothing at stake. You have to make something at stake. Again, I'm not criticizing the students. The students are doing the best they can. The organizers are doing an amazing job. I'm just saying, let's think through this together a little bit. What might be a better outcome? And one of those things is not being allowed to protest for another 30 days, 31 days. Saying you don't want staff, instructors, and students to come in, cool. I get that. I don't agree necessarily, but I have no critique of that. The university will reestablish an advisory committee on investment where they'll be required to answer questions regarding specific holdings. So they're not agreeing to divest from Israel or from anywhere else. They're simply saying we agree to answer questions about where we choose to invest. That's not enough. The university must divest from Israel. It's that simple. The university must divest from Israel. I don't know how else to say it. The university must divest from Israel. And if that isn't a core demand and a core outcome, then you haven't won a divestment fight. Now, I'm not saying the whole struggle is pointless, because there's lots of reasons to struggle. There's lots of reasons to protest on this issue alone. There's multiple streams of issues and things we should be speaking about. But what we cannot do, what we must not do, what we will not do is pretend that oversight of the university's investments is the same as controlling the university's investments. The ask is that the university divest from Israel. Now, let's be clear, because some people out there saying, why do you have to divest from Israel? Because that's been the call from Palestinian civil society. These students aren't saying, we hate Israel, let's divest, let's take the money out. They are responding to the call from Palestinian civil society to boycott, divest, and sanction any institution, not individual, but institution that is complicit in the oppression of Palestinian people. It's that simple. And so in the same way that we had a call placed upon us to divest from South Africa, from South African apartheid, to not fund South African apartheid. And so we demanded our universities divest from South Africa. We now have the demand from Palestinian civil society. People say, why are they picking South Africa? Why not Cuba? They always say, why not South Korea? Why not North Korea? Why not Saudi Arabia? Look, if a call tomorrow comes from North Korea, excuse me, I promise you, I will divest. The moment a call from Saudi Arabian civil society calls, I will boycott. From the moment, we see a BDS call, a sanction call from Russia, for Russia, I'm down. And in fact, I make my own individual choices now, regardless of that call. But it's not for me to boycott a country or to start a boycott from a country, but I will heed one, and I will encourage my colleagues to heed one. And that's what the university has to do. They have to heed the call from Palestinian civil society, just like they had to heed the call from South Africa. The difference is, actually, you know what? It's not a difference. It's not a difference. They didn't heed the South African call for decades. Universities got protested and marched. Now they all pretended they loved Nelson Mandela. Oh, now they love Desmond Tutu. Now they believe in the South African anti-apartheid struggle. But what were they doing when something was on the line? So these kids are demanding something. So again, shout out to the students at Northwestern. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the work you're doing. It's not enough, though, to let the university get off the hook by saying next year we'll have a committee where we agree to answer questions from where we put our money. No, I need y'all to make the commitment right now, university, to divest. Now, they also say they're going to give 5 faculty, to fund 2 Palestinian faculty members for 2 years. Look, I'm impressed. Pay the full cost of attendance for 5 Palestinian undergrads. Look, good for them. I'm impressed. The longer and more sustainable these funding streams are, the better. But look, y'all got something. And I want y'all to understand, any young person here watching it, when you fight, you win. And you won't have any wins that you get unless you fight for them. So keep struggling, keep organizing, keep building, keep fighting. We are going to get somewhere, y'all. All right. I want to move to this topic that I think we have to always get back to, which is Israel and Palestine itself. So much of our conversation has been about the students, which I think it should be in the United States, that sometimes the media gets let off the hook because they'll talk about the students, they'll talk about the protests, but they won't talk about the thing that the students are protesting. And that's where we come in. That's why we do the Gaza update every night. That's why we do these other things, so that we can keep the spotlight on the actual issue in addition to people's response to the issue. So let's talk about the International Court of Justice. In a 15-1 vote, the International Court of Justice rejected Nicaragua's request to order Germany to stop arming Israel. In 2023, roughly 30% of Israel's military equipment was supplied by Germany, and Nicaragua argued that Germany was complicit in Israel's genocide on Palestinians. Germany argued that 3 of the 4 export licenses were related to non-lethal material, and that 98% of military transfers after October 7th were non-military in nature. This swayed the court to rule in favor of Germany. This is a tough thing. Getting a country to not send weapons, or to not send military equipment, or to not militarily fund somebody is tough. And in order to make the case at the level of the International Court of Justice, you get the Hague involved. You got to be able to prove that the weapons are actually causing the genocide. Germany wasn't going to go down without a fight. One, they get paid from weapons, right? Weapons transfers, weapon sales, they get paid from it. 2, Germany has a long history of complicity and really shielding Israel from accountability in the international community for a variety of reasons. I think much of Europe, particularly Western Europe, much of Western Europe has been complicit in Israel's apartheid state, Israeli genocide, Israeli occupation, because of the extraordinary guilt felt by Europe for the evils that Europe committed, the evil actions, just the awful, indefensible, despicable behavior that European nations either created or enabled against Jewish people. So, the UK was directly responsible, right? France directly responsible. Russia, Poland, Ukraine directly responsible, right? So Europe, the Western Europe, but really all of Europe is responsible for the pogroms against Jewish people, the Holocaust, the genocide, whatever language, whatever framework, whatever historical juncture you look at, there has been extraordinary evil against Jewish people, and Europe has been at the center of it. And so much of the hands-off approach, or the enabling approach that we see from Europe against Israel right now, I think has a lot to do. It's rooted in the very appropriate guilt that Europe feels for the evils that they committed against Jewish people around the world. There's another way to respond to that guilt, though. South Africa took a different approach than Germany, right? South Africa says, we were an apartheid state. We know genocide. We know ethno-states. We know racism. We know institutional inequality. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use every ounce of our institutional being, every bit of energy we can muster politically, diplomatically, legally, to prevent another genocide, to dismantle other apartheid states. That's why it was so powerful that South Africa was the country that took Israel to the International Court of Justice on charges of genocide. Germany, however, has done the opposite. They said, you know what, we committed one of the most atrocious, horrific, acts in human history. The Nazi Holocaust is one of the most almost indescribably disgusting, atrocious, vicious, brutal, inhumane. I mean, these words are insufficient to describe how awful the Holocaust was. And Germany's response to the Holocaust is now to enable Israel to commit acts of injustice, acts of violence, acts of inequality against the Palestinian people. And so Nicaragua going to the ICJ was an attempt to stop that, to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to do something different here. The problem is, again, this wasn't the best case to make against Germany. This wasn't the best case because so many of the weapons that Germany is getting, or giving rather, were not directly for war. Not in this case. Doesn't mean Germany's wrong, but it just means in this case, it's a harder argument to defend when 3 of the 4 export licenses were related to non-lethal material, and 98% of the military transfers post October 7th were non-military in nature. Look, y'all see the ICJ, they're not soft, and they're not trying to be complicit with any of this. So the fact that they said no tells you something. But it raises another question. What about America? What about America? Because we send a lot of weapons, and them weapons be weaponing. U.S. weapons get used in acts of violence. Will the U.S. be brought up on charges of genocide and through complicity? Because the conventions on genocide aren't just about they're not just about the mens rea, the guilty mind. They're not just about the act of genocide. They're also about every state's duty to prevent genocide. And the U.S. doesn't prevent genocide, and we're complicit in genocide through the money, through the weapons, and I would argue through diplomatic and international legal cover, vetoing ceasefires, for example. But that's a whole other story for another time. So Germany didn't win, Nicaragua didn't win. Germany won that battle, and it's not good for the international community, but we'll keep going. All right, let's talk about Netanyahu. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, he gave 2 speeches, one in Hebrew and one in English, where he said that any attempt to arrest Israeli officials for war crimes would be a, quote, anti-Semitic hate crime. Now, here's the context. The International Criminal Court, let me make a distinction, not the International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice, which is the high court of the UN, it's The Hague, that's one court. Israel's already been brought there. But now there's the International Criminal Court. So not the ICJ, but the ICC. The ICC's job is to investigate war crimes in particular. And there are growing conversations from the ICC and around the world that Israeli military leaders and Israeli political leaders might get arrested, that there will be arrest warrants sent out for the Israeli leadership, which means that, as a practical matter, what that means is if Netanyahu lands in South Africa, or Itamar Ben-Gvir shows up in, I don't know, France. It won't happen in France. That's a bad example, but it could happen in France. But let's say he were to go to Nicaragua. They could be arrested as war criminals. And we've seen this before. I mean, Putin narrowly escaped some charges like this. We've seen many African leaders charged. In fact, unfortunately, the International Criminal Court seems to be only really effective at locking up African leaders. They don't do a good job with the West. They don't do a good job with the powerful European nations. They don't do a good job with the United States. And many Western countries, don't even hold membership status with the ICC. So it's complicated. But the point is, Benjamin Netanyahu said, even if y'all say it's a war crime, we don't care. That's the context, right? He said, if you lock us up for war crimes, we ain't the problem, you're the problem, right? He said specifically, and I quote, no ruling neither in The Hague. This is wild, y'all. This is absolutely wild. He said, no ruling, neither in The Hague nor anywhere else, will affect our determination to achieve all goals of war. Now, his goals of war, he said, are to, degrade Hamas, to make sure that Hamas will never be a threat to Israel, security threat to Israel again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then he was very specific about one of the goals of Israel, and that is to invade southern Gaza. He said, we're going to go into Rafah. And he said, even if there's a hostage deal, let me listen to this. Netanyahu said, even if there is a hostage deal, even if there is a ceasefire deal, this is Netanyahu. He said, regardless, he said, we're still going to invade Rafah. So he's basically saying, no matter what happens, even if we agree to peace, we're still going to ground invade. Now, understand, a ground invasion of Rafah would be a disaster of epic proportion. In fact, today, the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, said that a ground invasion of Rafah would be a, quote, unbearable escalation. He said it would be devastating for Palestinians in Gaza. Martin Griffiths, who is the UN Undersecretary for Humanitarian Affairs, said the simplest truth is that a ground operation in Rafah will be nothing short of a tragedy beyond words. No humanitarian plan can counter that. Germany even, we just talked about Germany. Germany even says this is a disaster. You can't invade Rafah. Biden doesn't want him to invade Rafah. He won't say it in public because he's, whatever, but he's preparing for an invasion that would be a gross humanitarian crisis. Let me tell you why, and then I'll tie it all up for you. The city of Rafah has about 250,000 people in it normally. But since October 7th, Israel has depopulated villages. They've destroyed homes. 70%, maybe now 80% now, I believe, of Gaza is unhoused. They're homeless. As they're taking people from the north and kicking them out, they're moving them to the center of the country and then to the south. Rafah is at the very south. It's right near Egypt. That's where the border is. There are now 1.5 million people there. So I'm going to just say that again. Normally 250,000 people there in Rafah. The whole country has 2.2 million, minus the 40,000 they've killed. They've taken 2.2 million people and squeezed most of them into this tiny city. And the people they squeezed into this tiny city don't have houses. They don't have clothing. Many are children who don't have parents or supervision. These are people who don't have food. And now, right as they're getting settled, they're going to do a ground invasion. They said it's going to create a humanitarian disaster, maybe that we've never seen before. You're literally creating a military action that isn't going to degrade Hamas. It's not going to stop the war. It's just going to kill a significant chunk of Palestinians. These are war crimes. So the reason why you see the ICC saying, hey, we might try y'all for war crimes, is because of the ground invasion in Rafah. It's the fact that they've used food and water as weapons of war, or really they've used hunger and starvation as a weapon of war. It's because they have literally killed humanitarian workers like the World Central Kitchen in front of everybody. They've killed people, Palestinians waiting in line for food in places like the Kuwaiti roundabout. They have bombed hospitals. They've carpet bombed areas. They have killed journalists. There's a million reasons to try Israel for war crimes. And Netanyahu's response is, if you try us for war crimes, or even if you arrest us for war crimes, it's an anti-Semitic hate crime. And this is the frustration that people feel. This is the frustration that people experience every day. There is so much anti-Semitism in the world. There is so much anti-Semitism in the world. It's real, and it's not getting smaller. We have to be honest about that. As we acknowledge that anti-Semitism, we also have to acknowledge that anti-Semitism is being weaponized cynically by people like Benjamin Netanyahu. Can we play a clip of Netanyahu? Let's hear what he had to say. You know what? It's all good. We ain't even got to hear Netanyahu. You know why? Because we know what he's going to say. Yeah, he basically said what I just said, right? Which is a quote from him, right? This is anti-Semitic. This is an anti-Semitic hate crime. Netanyahu is effectively saying that to hold Israel accountable for war crimes is active anti-Semitism. Now, to make a good faith interpretation of his argument, what he would say is that you're isolating the only Jewish state and you're stopping Jewish people from defending themselves from people who are only trying to kill them because they're Jewish. The problem is, it's not true, right? Whatever you think of Hamas and their actions on October 7th, and again, I regard Hamas's action on October 7th as a war crime, as a violation of, as a contravention of international law, and as a hateful act. I don't agree with the capturing of civilians. All that's true. I have space in my brain to be able to have that critique of Hamas and still point out Israel's war crimes. But Netanyahu is trying to make us believe that once October 7th happened, we don't have to think about October 8th and we don't have to remember October 6th. And neither can be true. Israel has to be held accountable. Israel has to be held accountable, both for what happened prior to October 7th, but also for October 8th and 9th and 10th, all the way up to day 200, and we were on day 207. We have to be able to have that conversation. But Netanyahu represents a particular approach, a very cynical approach to Middle East politics, and particularly to Israeli-Palestinian politics, where any criticism of Israel is seen as anti-Semitic, and any act of aggression against Israel is seen as an act against Jews, because they're conflating Jewishness and Judaism with Israel and Israeli statecraft. They're conflating Zionism with Judaism, right? And so any critique of Israel becomes, as such, a critique of Judaism. That's problematic. That's problematic. I think the other piece of this is we have to be honest. Hamas is not some global caliphate or some, can we play that? Yeah, let's hear this. Right there is good.
Is contemplating issuing arrest warrants against senior Israeli government and military officials as war criminals. This would be an outrage of historic proportions. International bodies like the ICC arose in the wake of the Holocaust committed against the Jewish people. They were set up to prevent such horrors, to prevent future genocides. Yet now, the International Court is trying to put Israel in the dock. It's trying to put us in the dock as we defend ourselves against genocidal terrorists and regimes, Iran, of course, that openly works to destroy the one and only Jewish state. Branding Israel's leaders and soldiers as war criminals will pour jet fuel on the fires of anti-Semitism, those fires that are already raging on the campuses of America and across capitals around the world. It will also be the first time that a democratic country fighting for its life according to the rules of war is itself accused of war crimes.
All right, stop it.
The Israeli army, the IDF,
I can't take
is one of the most...
I can't take this anymore. Okay. So first of all, again, he's weaponizing the past to justify the present, or he's exploiting the past to justify the present. He's saying that these conventions on genocide, that the criminal courts, all these things were used to protect the Jewish people. He's right. He's absolutely right. The whole reason we have a convention on genocide, the whole reason we have this international consensus about that we must stop genocide and fight genocide wherever is precisely because of what happened during the Nazi Holocaust. He's right. But that doesn't mean that Israel gets a free pass to commit genocide. He's saying that because these rallies or because these rules were made to support Jewish people in the 30s, in the 20s, we can't now rally against acts of genocide 100 years later against Israel. That makes no sense. The second thing he said is that's ridiculous is this will be the first time that a democratic country fighting for its life will be punished. First of all, Israel's not a democratic country, right? There's a one-state reality that denies citizenship, voting rights, etc., to millions of Palestinians, right? But on top of that, you're not following the rules of war. The rules of war don't let you blow up hospitals. The rules of war don't let you just blow up schools and mosques and churches. The rules of war don't let you strike non-military targets indiscriminately. But Netanyahu is preparing for the inevitable, which is that the international courts are going to hold Israel accountable. But we can't buy into that. The U.S. is going to defend them. Germany is going to defend them. France is going to defend them. Fine, it's going to happen. But the question is, how do we respond to it? The world is changing and people aren't, no one wants to be called anti-Semite because it's an awful thing to be and it's an awful thing to be called. But people are becoming less and less reluctant to engage in a principled critique of Israel because of the fear of being smeared as an anti-Semite. And finally, I'm going to start where I started. Anti-Semitism is real, and we have a duty to fight anti-Semitism everywhere it appears. We also have to make sure that we don't cheapen the conversation by mislabeling things as anti-Semitism. And we also want to make sure that we don't engage in a very profound act of anti-Semitism by attributing to the state of Israel the capacity to determine Judaism, or maybe even better put, we shouldn't be defining Judaism by what Israel does. Can you imagine defining Christianity or Islam by what America or Canada or Australia or New Zealand or France or Germany or South Sudan or Saudi Arabia or Iraq or Iran does? Of course not. The issue isn't with Jewish people. The issue isn't with the Jewish diaspora. The issue isn't with Jewish people. The issue is with the state of Israel and its particular practices toward the Palestinian people. And that critique is just as valid as the similarly urgent critique that we have to have of how Native populations are treated in Canada, residential schools, or the United States, with the erasure of Indians. We have to look at how Uyghurs are treated in China. We have to look at all of these questions. Again, Israel should not be held to a higher standard, but it also can't be held to a lower one. And that's that on that. All right, let's move to something else going on in the United States I want to talk about. The Drug Enforcement Administration has approved the reclassification of marijuana. I'm going to say that again in case you were high. The Drug Enforcement Administration has reclassified marijuana. Weed is going to move from its current classification, which is as a Schedule 1 drug, along with LSD, heroin, etc. It's going to become a Schedule 3 drug with things like ketamine. Now, as we wait for the White House Office of Management to approve this proposal, and it will, it's important to mention that this decision will not legalize recreational use of weed on a federal level. But it's still like a pretty damn big step in loosening restrictions on marijuana use. This decision might only have a small impact on criminal justice cases that involve marijuana because, again, Biden pardoned people with federal cases of simple possession and use in 2022. So basically, if you had a federal weed case, you already beat it, right? But 38 states have already legalized weed for medicinal purposes. 24 states have legalized it for recreational use. And those numbers are only going to grow now that it's moved to a Schedule 3 drug, which gives governors and state legislatures the license, the wiggle room, the justification to relax weed laws. Again, it doesn't change what's on the federal books. The feds can still come for your behind if they want to, but they won't if the state is moving this way. The question for me is why? Why now? I 1000% agree that we should be not making weed a Schedule 1 drug. No one in their right mind thinks that weed belongs in the same tier as LSD and heroin. Like, ain't nobody, no. I agree with that fully. But why now? The answer is simple. It's election year. And when there's an election year, particularly a presidential election year, Joe Biden is doing everything he can to steal some of them cheap votes back. See, there's some college students right now that are protesting on the campus, and they're like, F Joe Biden. There are people right now who are watching Joe Biden and his administration do nothing during a genocidal war, watching him do nothing as the economy is still denying, living wage jobs to the vulnerable. They're watching him do nothing about police terrorism in our communities, right? And they're like, I can't vote for Joe. Yes, I know he's better than Trump. I know Trump is a monster, a disaster, blah, blah, blah. But I'll just sit this one out then if I got to pick because I can't vote for Biden. He's hoping that some of those young voters, some of those college campus students who might be protesting right now, they're going to go back to their dorm and want to light up that bong, and they'd like to know that they're not going to prison for it. They wasn't going to prison anyway, but it's a nice idea. Black folk like to believe that Democrats are always meaning them well and serving them well. And so, when they see things like this, they'll say, look, he cut the student loans and made weed legal. Now, again, those are gross oversimplifications of what happened, not truly accurate representations, but it will work. It gets the people going. So shout out to this country for finally getting mature about weed, finally getting mature about drug use. I'm hoping we get even more smart, more mature, more thoughtful about drug use because, honest to God, we can't stay here where we criminalize everything. I'm proud to say that things have moved along way faster than I could have ever imagined. At the same time, let's not use this as another way to pat ourselves on the back or to pat Democrats on the back for doing the obvious and then not hold them accountable for ways that they actually could be challenged and pushed to be better. That's all I got to say about that. All right. I saw something. Woo. Drew Barrymore. I don't know if y'all know Drew Barrymore has a TV show. Everybody got a TV show these days, so I could see why you wouldn't know that. But Drew Barrymore has a daytime talk show. And on this daytime talk show, she had, speaking of election years and making people feel good, she had Vice President Kamala Harris on. And daytime TV talk is always lame. It's always empty. It's always pointless, right? It's you go there, you say some feel good things. If it's Ellen, you do a little dance. If it's, if it's Tamron Hall, you'll get asked a fairly good pressing question. I love Tamron Hall, but like daytime TV is not meant to be 60 minutes. It's not meant to be crossfire. It's just not meant to be intense. But there's these moments sometimes where, daytime talk tries to make it seem like they're going there and being powerful. And sometimes when they go there, it actually gets dumb and empty. And this time, might have even got a little racist. Watch this.
Really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. But in our country, we need you to be Momala of the country.
So it's a fascinating thing that happened there. And she said, I need you to be Momala of the country. And the reason she's saying that, she's talking about a blended family. You know, her husband, Doug, had 2 daughters, I believe, and she's a stepmom. And they don't call her mom, they call her Momala. She had earlier said that, you know, she has a good relationship with their mother, and that they're friends and that they have the same vision of parenting, etc. And she came into these kids' life late. So it wasn't like she met them when they were 4. So it wasn't that complicated, but they call her Momala. And she's talking about what it means to be a mother-like figure. And so when Drew Barrymore says, well, I need you, basically like America's healing, again, that's the go there, right? We're all fractured. We're not going to talk about anything. We're not going to talk about genocide. We're not going to talk about broken economies. We're not going to talk about unhoused population. We're not going to talk about police violence. We're just going to have this generic, the world's bad, and we need somebody to hug us real tight. And she said, I need you to be mine. Can we play it one more time? This time when you watch it, look at Kamala Harris's body language after she's told to be Momala. Watch this.
I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. But in our country, we need you to be Momala of the country.
Kamala Harris wanted no parts of that shit, right? But let me be clear. I don't think Drew Barrymore had any ill intent. I think she was just white womaning it up. She was just basically saying, hey, America is bad. We need somebody to take care of us. We want you to be Momala. But here's the problem. First, there's a long history of Black women being asked to clean up the messes created by white men, right? It's just a fact. And white women. There's also a long history of Black women being asked to play a joyous, motherly role toward people who aren't her kids. We want you to take care of them. We want you to hug them. We want you to burp them. Sometimes we want you to breastfeed them. We want you to do whatever you got to do to make sure that these people are okay and be a mama to them, even though you ain't their mama. In fact, we want you to be a mama to them so much you can't even be a mama to your own kids. You know what that person was? Mammy. 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 If y'all get a minute, read Black Feminist Thought by Patricia Hill Collins. It is a classic book, a book that changed my life when I was in college, where they talk about the different stereotypes or the controlling images of Black women, the mammy, the sapphire, the Jezebel. But please understand, the mammy is an image that we often have in our minds, a controlling image. It shapes what we expect from Black women. We want Black women to be the mammy. Again, we want them to take care of us, to meet our needs, to smile, to laugh, to do all they have to do, all they can do to take care of us. And when I say us, I don't mean me, Mark, I mean white people. And so when Drew Barrymore says, I want you to be the Momala of the nation, we need a big hug, she's asking this Black woman to be a mammy. I'm sorry. Now, again, that might not be her intention, but oftentimes white supremacy functions outside the boundaries of intentionality. It ain't just what you intend, it's how it happens. It ain't just what you meant to say, it's how your words felt. And it's also what the deeper implications are, because even though she may not have any knowledge of mammies in history, there's still a long history of white women expecting Black women to clean up their messes. I don't care whether it's a corporation, I don't care if it's a university, I don't care if it's a political context. We often see white people with sinking ships to finally give a Negro a job, and especially a Black woman a job, when it's time to clean up the mess. And then once the mess is cleaned up, they give it back to white people again. Or if it fails, they say, look what happens when we give it to Black folk, especially Black women. Again, do I see y'all writing in caping for Drew. She's an innocent person. She's a cornball. She didn't mean it. I agree. Again, I don't think she had bad intentions, but she's still asking this Black woman to step in and be the mammy for America. She is a vice president. She is a lawyer. She is a leader. She is somebody also who needs to be held accountable. I don't want her hugging America. I want her giving America living wage jobs. I want her to stop telling people across the border, don't come here, when we create the economic conditions that cause them to need to come here. I don't want her to just stand up and burp America. I want her to call for a permanent ceasefire. I don't want a mama. I want a leader. And she is a leader. She has the talent, the gifts, the experience to be a leader. Let's hold her to the same standard and not transfer our long-standing, historically rooted needs onto this Black woman who also is the vice president of the United States. Let's not forget that, y'all. Anyway, one more thing before we go tonight. One more thing. Y'all know what I'm about to talk about, right? Y'all know what I'm about to talk about, right? Y'all know what I'm about to talk about. All right, I'm finna talk about it. Today I got a gift. This morning I got a gift. It was a wonderful gift. I got a link to a song called Euphoria. Let's talk about it. Today, rapper Kendrick Lamar finally responded to the diss records 2, that Drake made about him, J. Cole, and others, which of course was a response to Like That, which was Kendrick Lamar's initial rap diss that set a whole rap beef ablaze. I'm here for all of it, especially Kendrick's response. Now, Kendrick, people were worried would be too lyrical. They're worried that he'd be too complicated in his rhyme schemes, that he wouldn't be able to, hit with straight body blows to Drake the way Drake does when Drake battle raps. Well, let me tell you something. When he dropped Euphoria, it's a song you got to listen to about 25 times, right? It starts off with a Teddy Pendergrass sample. And he basically says Drake ain't, he calls him a liar. He says he's full of it, right? And he talks about kind of dismantling him lyrically or what needs to happen. And then he goes about the work of doing it. Kendrick, when I tell you, he kills Drake. Now, let me be clear. I thought Push-Ups was amazing because Drake had like 15 people coming at him. He killed it. The tailor-made freestyle, people feel how they feel about it, right? The AI, using Pac and Snoop's voice. I get how people could feel about that both ways. So I'm not, and we did a whole office hours, me and Jameer Pong. Me and Jameer Pond did a whole thing about that. So y'all can go in the office hours and see my full breakdown of the previous stuff. But the new stuff is fire. It's fire. He used like 4 different accents. He had like a gajillion beats, and at each level he broke him down. And I'm not gonna go through the whole song, but if you just look like piece by piece, he's basically picking Drake apart for everything that he is and for everything that he's not. If you look at the clever wordplay, the double entendres, they're all there. You just gotta listen to it. Forgive me, my light went out. We go live here. And so, there's some bars there that have just that are just crazy, right? But he also goes for the jugular. He said his daddy's a killer. He want to be junior. They must have forgot shit that they done. Dementia must run in his family, but let it get shaky. I'll park his son. His daddy a killer. He want to be junior. They must have forgot shit that they done. Dementia must run in his family. Let it get shaky. I'll park his son. So he's making a reference to his dad having Parkinson's disease. I'll park his son, let it get shaky, dementia. Those kind of levels, you know, the very first time I shot me a Drake, the homie had told me to aim it this way. I didn't point down enough. Today, I'll show you I learned from those mistakes, right? So obviously talking about a Draco, you know, again, all these double meanings is crazy, right? He comes back at J. Cole. He doesn't kill J. Cole, but he makes it very clear that J. Cole still had to get a little bit more smoke, right? He says 3 ghosts left, and I seen 2 of them kissing and hugging on stage. I love him to death, and in 8 bars, I'll explain that phrase. Now, there's some homophobia in Kendrick's bars that I don't like. That's another conversation for another time. But I don't want to not acknowledge that. He's also murdering this dude, man. You know, he's basically, again, he reiterates the idea that he don't want there to be a big 3. He's saying it's just me, right? Yeah, Cole and Aubrey know I'm a selfish nigga. The crown is heavy, huh? I pray my real friends. If not, I'm YNW Melly, right? He said, yeah, fuck all that pushing P. Talking about Pharrell. Let me see you push a T. Alluding to the Pusha T beef that after story of Adidon, he ain't had no smoke back for him, right? So he's going through all this. Again, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but like I'm reading these lyrics here, but just understand he is fucking cooking Drake. He is cooking Drake, right? He plays on the racial stuff, right? You find people's sore spots, you keep jabbing at it, right? That's what Pusha T did when he said, you know, said you wasn't black enough, you know, your hair scared to grow it because you're afraid it wouldn't nap enough, right? That was Pusha T. So they all play on that, right? He said, how many more black features till you finally feel that you black enough? I like Drake with the melodies. I don't like Drake when he acting tough. You gonna make a nigga bring back Puff. Remember, Puffy beat up Drake allegedly. Let me see if Chubbs really crashed something, right? Yeah, my first one, like my last one, it's a classic. You don't have one. Again, getting at this argument. Remember, Drake tried to do that Jay-Z takeover thing where he broke down Kendrick's albums, saying that they gotten worse or they're snoozers or whatever. But his point is, I got classic records. Drake don't got a classic album. I agree with that point. One more thing, and this is the bar I think that a lot of people rock with, right? He said, my first one, like my last one, it's a classic. You don't have one. Let your core audience stomach that, then tell them where you get your abs from. See what he did there? He said, my first one, like my last one, to my albums, is a classic. You don't have one. Let your core audience stomach that, then tell them where you get your abs from. This is hip hop beef, but this is also hip hop bars, right? He said, let your core audience stomach that. Your core is, you know, when you work your core, you work in this area, right? He said, let your core audience stomach that, then tell them where you got your abs from, because of course Drake is alleged by many sources to have gotten ab surgery. Every line is so layered. He said, I pray to my real friends. If not, I'm YNW Melly. If you don't know, YNW Melly is a rapper that caught a murder charge for killing 2 friends or killing 2 fellow rappers. So he said, I'm going to kill 2 other rappers. Like, anyway, I'm not going to keep breaking down the lyrics, but just please understand, shit crazy. Like, this shit is crazy. This shit crazy. Now, I happen to have a very good sense that Drake will have a response by tomorrow. At the latest Thursday, but probably tomorrow. But this is only get vicious. See, what Drake does is Drake knows how to co-opt the conversation and have you thinking some shit that's not normal is normal, right? So like him and Meek had an issue. He put out Charged Up. Then he put out Back to Back. And then he's like, yo, it's been 2 whole days. We ain't heard you rap yet, Meek. And it's like, who said you have to respond to a beef in 48 hours? But he created a situation where every day that Meek didn't put out something, the public was feeling like Meek was losing something. So it was a very smart strategy by Drake to kind of twist the public conversation, it's incredibly fascinating to watch this. So then Meek either has to wait and look bad or rush and put out something that's not as good, right? That's the rapper's option, not just Meek, any rapper's options, right? So it's very interesting. So Drake took forever to respond to Kendrick. Right? Cole responded way faster than Drake. But then once Drake puts something out, he's like, why aren't you rapping? Why aren't you rapping, Kendrick? Then he had Snoop and Pac impersonate it and say, why aren't y'all rapping? Why aren't y'all rapping? So, but Kendrick smartly took his time and put out something surgical. But what I suspect Drake did is he already had his shit written so that it looks like, he's responding fast. I think Drake has something in the tuck already. I suspect he'll tweak it because you gotta have at least a few responses to the bars that you just heard, right? But I guarantee you, they in there cooking right now. Nobody outworks Drake. Drake is in the studio 24/7. I guarantee you, they in there cooking already. They probably already got a verse or two done. The song will be done, I suspect, by tomorrow, Wednesday, if not Thursday at the latest. But I guarantee you, it won't be Friday. It won't be the weekend when we hear this Drake response. I'm very confident of that. Now, just remember what I told y'all. We'll see what happens. Somebody said Ghost Rider's working overtime. Wow. Abel says Ghost Rider. Yeah, Drake writes, yo. I'm not saying Drake don't get help, but Drake does write. And I guarantee you he's in there right now, like writing. Again, I ain't saying he don't get help. Everybody get help almost. But he's getting it in. Anyway, y'all, it's wild. Y'all got all Ghost Rider jokes, man. Y'all is wilding. I'm gonna leave that alone for today. I'll just say this. Watching Drake get dragged through the coals was good enough for me. And again, Drake is incredibly talented. He just gets on my damn nerves. But watch how he responds. Watch what he does. That's going to be the test. I think he's going nuclear next. I think he's going to drop something that's going to be personal and intense. And then I think Kendrick comes back with something personal and intense. I don't know how this thing ends, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm enjoying the battle. I'm enjoying the raps. All right, y'all. We got to roll, man. Oh, I was supposed to take one more question from y'all. You know what? I almost forgot. Odette Marie wrote in and said, can we please talk about Emmanuel Acho's foolery tonight? All right, so there's a couple of things Emmanuel Acho did that get on my damn nerves. Emmanuel Acho does lots of things to get on my nerves. If y'all don't know, he's a former professional football player turned commentator, sports analyst. But he's done a couple of things. He says that he's the one who came after Angel Reese. He's the one who said, you can't act grown, act like a big girl, and then blah, 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 right? And came at her. But recently, Emmanuel Acho's been starting to promote his new book. I'm assuming this is what you're talking about. Emmanuel Acho started to promote his new book called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew. He wrote a book with Noah Tishby. Noah Tishby is a pro-Israeli Jewish woman who has strong feelings about Israeli politics, as many people do. And as an Israeli woman, she has her own investment in that. Emmanuel Acho has an investment, from what I see, in being famous and offering what he believes is smart, sophisticated thinking. I have never heard Emmanuel Acho, with all due respect, and I don't want to disrespect the brother, I've just never heard him say anything interesting or smart or counterintuitive or useful. And so I don't find much value in his commentary. His sports analysis I find interesting because I think he's an expert in his area. If I were to give football analysis, I wouldn't have much expertise. So, we all have our areas of expertise. And I'm not saying he should stick to football. I think he should talk about anything he wants. I think he should study as deeply and widely as possible. I think he should be thoughtful on lots of issues. I've seen people like Michael Strahan do it, and they're amazing. I've seen people like George Stephanopoulos step out of politics and talk about culture. They do a great job. So this isn't about him being an athlete. This isn't about being snobby or anything like that. The issue is that Emmanuel Acho often speaks without thinking. Yesterday on Twitter, he posted a picture from UCLA and said, this student is being banned from campus because he has a Jewish star around his neck. Now, that wasn't true. First of all, there was no reason for him to think that, right? The student didn't even say, my Star of David is what prevents me from being allowed on campus. But he framed a pro-Palestinian student protest in a way that made it sound anti-Semitic. What actually happened was there was a protest area for the pro-Palestinian students, and other students were asked to not enter that way unless they were part of that protest. He went through the opposite way on purpose. And this is according to security. This isn't, I'm not quoting the Palestinian students. I'm quoting this campus security. They're like, look, this guy went the wrong way on purpose as a provocation, which I've seen on lots of campuses, right? He wanted to make a point. If he wants to make a point, he's allowed to make a point. But this idea that he wasn't allowed on campus because he was Jewish is just wrong. It's wrong-headed, it's dishonest, and it's unclear. Now, I don't think Emmanuel Acho was trying to be dishonest. I just don't think he did the research. He saw that somebody said that, or someone sent it to him, and he decided that it must be true because somebody said it. And he uses his huge platform to echo that kind of statement. He doesn't say anything about the Palestinian protests. He didn't say anything about this righteous resistance we see all around the country against Israeli genocide. He didn't say anything about an anti-war protest. He just points at this out, which then from his powerful platform makes it look like the protesters are anti-Semitic. That's dangerous. And then he puts out this book. And again, I haven't read the whole book, so I have more thoughts and comments on his book. I did buy the book, and I read the introduction to it this morning when I should have been reading something else. But I read the introduction to it. The introduction actually starts with October 7th, the kind of post-October 7th moment. But it's very clear that in this book, there's no interrogation of Palestine. There's no criticism of Israel. And this idea that there's some courageous conversation going on when you have a Zionist on one hand and you have an athlete who doesn't know anything about the topic with any expertise. And I think I know he's going to say he's been studying for 15 months on this book. He's been studying Judaism, and he's been studying Black Jewish relations. And I think he probably has something interesting to say about that. Again, I'm not taking anything away from the brother's knowledge base, but we're in a moment where a genocide is taking place. And I think that a responsible move, a responsible thinker, a responsible voice would have something to say about that, or they wouldn't say anything about that. But instead, Emmanuel Acho continues to scratch when he does not itch and laugh when he is not tickled in front of America. And when you do that, what you end up doing is creating problems for everybody else who is fighting for justice. And you also undermine the work of people who do know things about this topic. So once again, just like with Angel Reese, I wish Emmanuel would talk less and read more. That's my thought. All right, y'all. It's been great talking to y'all. Just want to do a quick shout out again. Welcome, Anna Warner. Welcome, The Wanderer. New channel members. Welcome, Meg, to the next level of gift givers. You gifted 5 channel memberships. We appreciate that. Honey's a new member. Thank you for joining the channel. You have no idea. Jeremiah Muhammad has given, I swear to God, no exaggeration. I don't run out. You know, let me not give a number. I've run out counting of how many memberships you've gifted us this week. Thank you so much. Change Wave, I'm grateful to you. Abdul Masood said, students are against genocide, the same genocide that destroyed universities, killed hundreds of academics, poets, and hundreds of our brave journalists. That's right. Again, these students they're not even necessarily pro-Palestinian. They're anti-war. They're pro-justice. And I think that means the Palestinian struggle right now is the righteous fight. But at the core, the point here is these students are fighting for justice. Motan Torpedo says, Salam Mark, love your content. Thank you for all you do. Our country's travel required to arrest these officials of arrest. They're not required to, but as they always say, international law is as strong as the people that uphold it and support it. So if these other countries don't support it, and many don't, then what's the point of international law? It's only as effective if people hold it down for them. Bring your Tigrinya. We got a Habesha person here. It sounds like a retrained person. I hate to say it, but I was at UT Austin and saw lots of violence against Jews, tackled and dragged by their ankles by the state trooper. You see, I was reading it right to the end. I was like, really? Damn, by the state troopers. That's right. Again, they keep making the students anti-Semitic. It's often not them. And we keep talking about violence on campus. Bringing the police in seems to be the thing that keeps the violence going. Meg L said, wondering if you have a perspective as to who may be a better third-party choice for the presidency. I don't know yet. I'm still thinking through what I'm going to do. I'm still thinking through how I want to frame it. But I'm excited to see Jill Stein. I'm excited to see Cornel West. I'm excited to hear the conversations. What I do, what I endorse, what I support, I can't speak to yet because I just don't know. I just don't know. That's the honest answer. But I'm excited that it's even happening. Chef Shia said, can you please check out Roots Metals and do a segment on how to respond to her points? I'll Google that. I'm not sure what that is, but I'll Google that out. Thank you, Underground Delivery Service. You're much appreciated. And finally, Calm Like a Bomb. Catching you live for once. Got to show some love. Keep spreading the truth. Yo, I appreciate your generosity and I appreciate you catching us live. Yo, the live audience is growing every single night. Every single night. We have twice as many people live as we had a week ago. And I'm so grateful for it, everybody. As you hit that like button, or as you watch it, hit that like button. It's important. If we got 335 people watching at a moment, then we need to have 335 likes, if not more. The like button lets the YouTube algorithms know to rock with us. They let them know that you rock with us. It lets them know to spread the content wider. So please hit the like button. If you're rocking with a show, please hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button so you can get regular updates on what we're doing. Hit that little bell so you get notifications every time we go live. And of course, if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a monthly subscriber to the channel. By subscribing to the channel monthly, you help us to buy materials, to supply resources, to get new technologies, to put down money toward that big state-of-the-art studio. And of course, you allow me to pay my staff. If y'all like the footage y'all saw tonight, if you like them buttons that got pushed and you like the clips that get rolled and you like me not having to look around like a crazy person, that comes with staff, and staff comes with costs. And so I don't have a billionaire check behind me. I don't have anybody paying money for me. This is independent media. This is Black-owned media. This is radical media. And those things come at a cost. And so I'm willing to pay the cost, but I'm always grateful when y'all can support me too. And if you want to just go direct and circumvent YouTube and all these other things, you can go to Cash App, $MLHTV, or you can go to Venmo at MLHTV. Those will help us directly pay those bills. Look, it's the last day of the month. It's April 30th, literally going into May 1st as we speak. It's the last day for us to pay bills. It's the last day for us to build up the channel for the month of April. It's the last day for me to pay staff. If everybody watching right now drop $5 in, whether it's through Super Chat, whether it's through Super Stickers, or whether it's through Cash App or Venmo, if everybody donated $5 right now, we would be able to pay all of our bills for the next 2 weeks. If everybody watching right now, the number's gone up of people watching, if everybody just donated $5, you can always donate more, but if everybody donated $5, we would be in a great place. So please, if you can do it, do it. And if you can't, that's okay. Just hit like and subscribe. It don't cost you anything. The biggest thing here is not to get your money. The biggest thing is to get your eyes and your mind. We want you to watch. We want you to listen with the ears. And we want you to make different decisions about how the world functions, and then make those decisions action. So we teach, you learn. You teach, I learn. We build, we grow, we reimagine the world, and then we go out and we change that world in the interest of justice. Anyway, y'all, see y'all tomorrow. We got a lot more coming up on Night School this week. Can't wait to talk to you later. Peace.